What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Twink Revolution. I'm Sam.
I'm Gian.
And America is burning. But before we get to that, we have a special announcement. Do you want to tell
That was a good quick segue. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, the entire world's on fire. First, about us.
I'm trying to keep them excited for what's to come.
Yeah, that's suspenseful. Something we're doing, it's kind of fun, is we are in the style of all good grifters. We're expanding, and we're basically going to try and do some gay news online.
Yeah, well, not just gay news, but like
it's not gay news. We're going to basically start publishing long form, not just ours, by other writers as well.
Yeah.
So basically we have, twinkrev.com. At the moment is just like a link to the podcast. We've got a whole sexy website that's going up there, and we've got some really fantastic writers who are basically gonna write some stuff for us. And the idea being, I don't know, basically like, I think I'll try and speak for you, Sam. But I don't have to speak for you. But like that, just like Twitter sucks.
Yeah.
And Twitter sucks for reasons that are not like, it's not in the usual eye roll of like, oh, I'm so sick of Twitter, which everyone is. But more than actually just like the world is a tough place, and I think this week has shown that as much as much as anything. Although this has been brewing for us for a bit longer. And Twitter is just the worst place to express a complicated idea. And it turns out like some ideas just are complicated. And I think for me, at least, there's just been several instances where shit on Twitter just kind of is like, just feels incredibly pointless, empty. And then you actually go read something just a little more nuanced, right? Where somebody's put the effort into developing an idea and presenting it as like, hey, here's my take. And even when you don't agree with that, it's not a hot take machine. It's a lukewarm take machine.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think so many people I like on Twitter seem to have just kind of having online meltdowns, which is fair. I mean, we're in like
baby.
We're in a pandemic. The world's like dealing with a lot of shit, and now like there's protests in like every single state in the U.S. right now. But also it's just not very conducive to like changing anyone's minds, and it's often more focused on personal beef with each other versus like actually doing anything to advance a left. And I think at least with writing, like you can bring in more people and hopefully change some perspectives. I think podcasting is like a different example because it's much more narrow, but like people who I think maybe are a little harder to stomach on Twitter are better in like a podcast form, or they're better as writers because they get to hear the full arguments and points of what they're making versus 120 characters or whatever the fuck it is on Twitter.
280. Wow, you're living the past. Exactly that. And it's just not, it just doesn't feel like a time in which like the kind of personal brand building that the Twitter platform incentivizes is particularly helpful. So anyway, it's an experiment. We're paying writers. Part of the genesis for this was finding out how shitty like the online publishing industry is for writers. And being like, wait a minute, I think we can do a little better than that, honestly. Yeah. So anyway, the idea is it's going to be stuff that is, some stuff that's gay and some stuff that is Marxist and some stuff that is both or neither. And
things like foreign affairs, cultural things.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it works out. And if it sucks, we'll just turn it into a shitty porn site. So whatever,
It'll be some like Soviet porn remakes, but like hot twink.
Yeah, so keep an eye out. It's not there yet. It's twinkrev.com is where it will be. We're hoping in probably about a week. If you're listening to this, it might be worth plugging that into your browser and seeing what's there.
Yeah.
And if you want to write for us, we're definitely really excited, I think, to like talk to people who are not, quote unquote professional writers, people who have something to say, but have never thought of writing for an outlet or a publication before. We'd love to hear from you. So you know all the ways to get in contact with us.
Yeah, we don't want to get stuck in the trap of like a PMC establishment writing group versus.
No, we do enough of the PMC establishment around here. Thank you very much.
Speak for yourself. But getting to things that are more relevant to the rest of the world. I just wanted to do a disclaimer. So we're not doing protest coverage because we're not journalists. People are doing that much better than we'll ever do. Instead, we're going to talk about some of the ties in with like Pride's history and some of the good analysis, really bad analysis, and yeah.
Well, also, I mean, like the I don't know. There's been a sort of endless like discourse machine operating around as soon as sort of any protest movement emerged and then riots, clearly around what is obviously like racialized violence, right? Racialized police violence. There's a sort of first order take that goes something like well, we must center black voices in this, and the thing is like that's a great idea. So kind of just want to acknowledge up front that like the irony of like that we're not that is not lost on us. We understand that completely, but we're going to talk about it anyway because it's what's happening in the world. So if your first impulse is to go, I want to scold these white people talking, well, like you know how to go find other people who are, say, people of color who are qualified to speak on this, and like So anyway, we're not under no illusions like who we're talking to or about. I just wanted to get that out of the way, just because like it's a fucking weird time in the world right now. People are on edge, and like rightly so. There's plenty of good reasons to be pretty on edge right now.
Totally. Plus, like I think if we just didn't say anything ever, I think that would look really poorly as well. Like we're not here to like explain the black person's opinion because that's not what we're doing. So don't take it that way. So
and this is my light scolding, is to say, if your impulse is to go, if you don't know how to find a black person's opinion on what is going on, not just one, but many perhaps, and like that says more about you than it does about us.
Go look up like Boots Riley.
Go talk to. I don't know. I'm not gonna. It is not my job to educate people on how to find somebody else to talk about this.
Oh, I just really like him. So
I really like Boots Riley's back on Twitter, and that's great.
He's like a shooting star. He glimmers on Twitter for like a short bit, and then it's like amazing, and then it's gone. He's like, God, when are you coming back?
He's the Haley's Comet of Twitter personalities, and I'm glad he is. It's actually probably one of the few things that kept me on Twitter. I was ready to just fucking delete.
Yeah,
I was so over Twitter, and then he turned up and started tweeting pretty hard, and like
and Ice-T. Ice-T's been like,
but Ice-T is a consistent superstar on Twitter. He always has been.
Yeah, I know, but
he's one of the few people who understands how to use that platform correctly.
Yeah.
Which is to say, have vast amounts of money, have independent personal wealth, and then don't give a fuck on Twitter, and that's very entertaining as a format.
Agreed.
Sadly, not all of us have the luxury
of being Ice-T.
As we can all aspire to one day reach the lofty heights. Have you been cast in SVU yet?
No.
Did you get the casting? Did you get the call back for your SVU child molestation victim? Come on, that or To Catch a Predator decoy. You could do either pretty well.
Is that a show still?
I don't know.
Oh, I think I could do both. I could be like the odd looking like Slavic child kept in like a dungeon for 12 years.
Yeah.
And just be like beady like doe eyes and like skeletal structure, and I'm like, God, this poor boy, I can't imagine what he's been through.
Also, there's sort of pallid complexion from 3 months of staying inside for quarantine. It's very believable, actually.
Yeah. But protests.
Protests are happening to you. They are.
Yeah, if you
happening around you.
Don't live in a bubble and have not been online or seen TV or anything, or don't talk to anyone. There's protests going on.
You haven't been doing your 8 p.m. cheering for essential workers at your doorstep, like a ruffian, somebody who just doesn't understand civic mindedness.
Yeah, it's the aftermath of a police officer's killing of George Floyd, which is gross. I don't think I actually watched the full video because I didn't feel the need to. But plenty of people have died after, including in the protests, and they're just growing. Now they're international. But But if you are planning on going, we thought we would offer some basic safety tips because a lot of people might be their first protest. They're like their first time to an event that's actually confrontational. It's not the Women's March, guys. Like,
Yeah, not necessarily a permitted rally for God, what was that fucking Colbert and Jon Stewart doing the like their anti-Tea Party rally or whatever.
Oh yeah, the Tea
Was
Party.
it the Rally for Common Sense? It's not that.
Yeah.
Um,
No, there's actually like legitimate risk for going to a lot of these things, especially once they get close to like curfew times.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I you know we're not trying to like style ourselves as local experts. I think both of us have you know participated in unpermitted you know gatherings. That's about all I think I want to say on that topic.
Yeah.
But you know, just I don't know. I've had a bunch of friends who are for the first time in their lives, like they're thinking about going out and protesting at a time when the police are saying, "Do not protest here. We will fuck your shit up." So like,
and just having like gone out and seen some of the like not things people would think about as like risk for themselves. It's like, oh, probably better to let people know so they don't make that. For example, I saw a person wearing a crop top, and if you get tear gas, it'll burn your skin. So don't wear scantily clad clothing to a protest. Wear jeans and like a long sleeve, preferably like plain clothing. You do not want to stand out in a protest because it makes it easy to track. Like,
yeah. Well, I'd say first and foremost tip is, don't go alone.
Yeah, don't go alone.
And the idea being like, there's a lot of like wherever you are, there are going to be local organizations that are just better at this than you are and have done this and kind of like know just a little bit more about how to be safe and how to be effective and I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, highly recommended. Just hook up with a local org or at least like some friends or something.
Yeah.
Don't go alone. It's a bad idea.
Like there's a lot of orgs like PSL, DSA who I've seen at the protests, and I think they're definitely willing to like let you join them and stuff. Because
I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak for them, but put it this way: if you see like a DSA banner or something, go hang out near it and do what they do.
Yeah,
that's as good an idea as any. If you like, I don't know, if you just like, if this is your first time at a protest, most protests end up being like walking around and relatively tranquil.
Yeah.
But it's if shit can get real fast and like then just be near some people who might like when they start running, you probably should start running too.
Yeah. I think another one is for phone, just because people maybe don't realize there's machines that can actually get all your information and see who's in a crowd. So put your phones on airplane mode and also turn your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth off.
Yeah.
And then deactivate your thumb login and if you have a face login, because there's no legal protection that they can to open your phone. So they can make you put your thumb down or face to open a phone.
They police if you happen to end up arrested, which to be clear, you probably won't.
Yeah, totally.
But should you, then yes, the police and law enforcement can compel basically unlocking your phone through both of those methods. They can't, however, compel you to reveal a PIN number.
Yeah.
At least, and like we're not lawyers, so if I don't know if that legal precedent is still held up, but at least that seems like sensible advice. Is basically if you have to type a secret number into your phone to log in, then like that's a better way to get into your phone while you're at a protest. Just in case, like why make it easier for people who want to do harm to you?
Yeah. Don't wear contacts. I never actually thought of this until someone pointed it out. But if you do get pepper sprayed or tear gas or like even a fumes permit, you can't take out your face because your body's covered in pepper spray or tear gas. So wear glasses. Don't wear contacts.
No.
That's a good one.
Take some water. Take a bottle of water with you.
And also there's plenty of more, like, I don't know, Amnesty International has like a good list, ACLU. I think DSA shared some stuff for like just basic tips for like safety and how to be prepared if you go out. So check those out. Like those are the places.
That's yet again. It's like talk about think about local organizations that are going to just be a little more tapped in or just have a little bit more of a plan about where are you meeting. Once you meet, where are you going?
Yeah.
wear sensible shoes. See on the other.
Oh yeah,
That's their advice.
wear good walking shoes.
Yeah, just as I said, most protests involve a lot of tranquil walking around your city. And get those chants on too. Get
Yeah.
get your chant going if you're going out. But
Yeah.
but definitely like just please don't just go alone and think that's going to be fine. It might be for many people, but like I don't know, why get hurt? Live to fight another day.
Yeah.
It's better off if you're getting hurt, at least like, make sure there's people around you who are going to be able to look after you.
Yeah, be smart.
So, saying that, and you'll notice in giving that advice up front, you could believe many things about what our beliefs are about the particular goings on. And I feel like the discourse
Yeah.
has devolved into kind of two camps on this, right? One is the sort of like
Nihilism.
yeah, just absolute cynicism and a sort of nihilistic black pill, like this will not accomplish anything. Everything has to mean something.
Yeah.
And then there's another contingent which are maybe saying like you being, hopeful. This is an optimistic sign. This is the first sign of class consciousness emerging. This is the revolution. It's starting.
Yeah.
I take in like the libbest fashion ever. I take the middle way, which is actually to say like the shit doesn't have to mean anything right now. You don't. That's applying a very very high standard to an explosion of frustration, outrage, which is manifesting in all sorts of ways.
Well, yeah, it also it's a claim what's going to happen. It's just kind of illogical just because it's changed so much. Like, I don't think I would have guessed after the first protest that it would have emerged all the way to like places like France having like riots and like every single state in the US has protests now, which is like crazy. I couldn't even have imagined that would happen like in a week.
Right. Well, and it's important, I think, to also say that the character of these things that are going on, and I use that term deliberately, is like, yeah, there are riots,
yeah,
and there's very organized, peaceful protests, and there's, I know, people buying Molly Crabapple's sign making kit and reclaiming public spaces by hanging a banner outside their house. Like, there's a whole range of expressions. The point being, you don't have to have a single take. You don't have to believe all of this is good and in service of some good aims. You don't have to think it's all like bad or pointless or counterproductive or actually harmful in the long run. It's like you can actually kind of just evaluate these things piecemeal for now. And like, the ideas will form. I think I choose a certain kind of optimism only because like the cause is righteous. The demand to not be killed by police if you're black is a very reasonable one. I think we can all I think we should all be able to sort of say like, yes, the demand is concrete and reasonable. And then yeah, sure, there's going to be people who are just like doing shit that the media can sort of spin in a 30-second clip of like, oh yeah, you care about police violence. Well, why are you stealing a VCR?
Yeah.
Like, well, who the fuck cares? Like, fuck off. That's not the question you're being asked to adjudicate here.
Also, I think when you take the nihilistic perspective, you maybe don't see the positives of what's coming to fruition. Like, I think it's the first time I've seen so many people who maybe have never even like talked about it or like the police violence. Like a lot of people like were Trump voters and conservatives being like, yeah, this is awful and like he should go to jail. Like they're all mad as well from seeing what's going on. Libertarian people, I saw people like shitting on like, where are they? And like, there's tons of them out. Like, so I think to see so many people, for one, getting involved, like it's a big step for Americans where it's really hard to get any American to not only like go out and do a protest, but to like go to protest knowing there's a risk for like being fucked up. You know what I mean?
Where the police are being particularly heavy-handed and there's actually I did see a tweet because Yet again, Twitter brain. But no, about like sort of analytically describing a lot of this as a police riot is kind of true. I mean, like, um, someone who isn't me certainly saw the police behaving very badly.
Yeah.
And against crowds who are very peaceful and they're there to be heard, and like so the problem is to simply sort of even like buy into the lib moralistic framing to say, well, actually you're undercutting the cause because the unified masses that are all going to do this one thing for one reason are doing the wrong. And it's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
People have been in quarantine. They've been locked down. People are poor.
Millions of people
40 million
unemployed.
people unemployed or what the fuck. Like, you have to understand there's going to be many reasons people are doing many things. Of course, there's going to be like communities that have lived under a certain regimen of like racialized policing who are going to have a incredibly pointed message on some of the stuff, and there's going to be people who don't know why the fuck they're there at all.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's just like, that's just how the world works. It's going to be messy. If your understanding of like how social change happens is basically from like reading about it in history books where there's a very clear narrative of like, well, these people wanted this, and then this great man said, we're going to do this instead. And then we started, it's like, fuck off. That's not like,
that's not how anything
everything
works.
is messy.
Yes.
Like life is messy. And so this is going to be messy as shit. And so you don't have to understand all of it. You don't have to comprehend all of it. It's just, like, you can just take it piece by piece.
You also won't be able to comprehend all of it, which is like why we're not doing a breakdown of what's going on, because so much is coming out, so much we don't know. And like, we don't know what the outcome is. Like, most people don't do an analysis until it's over. Like, this is the difference.
Right. It is history is happening to you right now.
Yeah.
It is, you are living through it. And no matter what you're doing, if you're, listening to this on your way to, to go smash out some AutoZone windows for your day job at the police or whatever, or shout out to all our no, sorry, no, I can't even do that as a bit this week. No. But anyway, yes, if no matter what context you're doing, right? Like, history is happening around you. It's always happening around you. It's just kind of more interesting this week.
Yeah.
But it turns out not everyone has decided to be interesting in the context of this sort of, incredibly critical moment of historical development. Instead, there's also been some people who have just decided to be incredibly trite and boring and make it about the gays.
Yeah.
Like us.
Well, it is Pride, and there has been a lot of people pointing out the crossovers of how Stonewall, which I assume every gay person and every straight person who knows anything about gay is that was a riot, and it's the...
And we all seen was it Bryan Singer did the Stonewall movie or whatever? So everyone's seen that?
It's the alleged like start of the gay liberation movement, which later created Pride. And people have been hypocritical. They're like, oh, if you condemn the riots going on now, well, then don't go to Pride. But then at the same time, they're pushing a narrative that's been pushed by the media and police stations of like this white anarchist group. But it's just kind of silly because like that's rioting still. Which,
well, it's the idea of sort of like parsing everything into sort of good, meaningful political actions that led to good outcomes, like the formation of the Human Rights Campaign.
Yeah.
And bad actions, bad. But yet there's a sort of fetishization of like the people who, in telling a sort of hagiography of the lives of some of the people involved with Stonewall, are really just trying to sell you a fucking rainbow brick.
Totally.
Fuck that, right?
Well, it's like especially for like, I think Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, their narratives are extremely whitewashed, or it's a lot of misinformation that people keep sharing. And it's made the story of what happened, which I'll cover in a bit, is just not true and like overly woke when it doesn't need to be.
Well, there's the like honestly, I have seen no fewer than 4 different people who are like, I don't know, how do I charitably describe them? Gay basic bitches.
Yeah.
Doing a kind of like, oh, it's Pride Month, and don't forget, like, it was trans women of color who started, a riot to start the thing. And I'm like, you would have been calling the police on them because they would have like,
They wouldn't have been in this bar.
to be clear, if true, and like if true, which Sam will cover, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, the people who are sort of taking to social media to do good in the world by reminding people that I don't even know what the fuck they're trying to do. But anyway, to put it this way, just to be clear, they would have been the people who were inside the bar, and like busy calling the police on people making trouble and ruining their cosmos or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just also like there's no point in rewriting this history because yet again it's parsing it into that there's like a good violence that leads to good things. And then there's a sort of there's a wrong way to conduct yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, just don't believe the hype.
Yeah. But just to kind of go over that, and there's a lot of parallels between like I think what's going on now. But to give some context, so before Stonewall, there was actually many police raids, and actually it was illegal to serve gay people in New York. So the first well-known like bar protest was actually people going to bars, saying they were gay, being refused drinks, and then suing them. And then not long after, Stonewall happened, and the reason that happened was Stonewall was owned by the mob, and the mob this time did not pay the police off, which means the police.
See, we're on theme. We're back to cops.
Yeah, but the police basically would go into gay bars, especially ones like Stonewall, which most gay undercover bars did not allow drag queens. They didn't allow trans people. They didn't allow effeminate people. Like it was kind of like
mask for mask.
It was basically the place where the people at the bottom of the barrel, like homeless people, would go. Like everyone who's like nowhere else to go.
Sort of at the margins, the absolute margins of both sort of heterosexual society, but also of gay society as much as it existed.
It wasn't even just, I think, gay. There was a lot of just like homeless
sort of low-life
teens
bars,
that would go
right? Yeah.
who would like, hoping they could just get a drink if they went there, because there's only 2 places I think that would actually serve them. Like this group of people, like transvestites, which is like anyone who dressed up in women's clothing. But I think is why a lot of people say like trans women of color, but it was actually mostly drag queens.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think we've covered this before, where there's a lot of retconning. The historical process of trying to reinterpret just a different time.
Yes.
Into our current understanding of, say, gender identity and things like that, which like just doesn't make sense. If you hear, that this is not so long ago that we actually have the words of people like Sylvia Rivera and Marsha Johnson, like talking about their own understanding of their identity and things like that. And like, but people want to, I don't know, retroactively apply something kind of different. It's like people being like, Alexander the Great was actually bisexual. like
there wasn't a term for that.
Yeah. You're like, you've like, if alive today, perhaps they might understand.
Yeah.
They might construe their identity that way. But at the time, there was not a construct that existed yet.
But to go back to the story, so technically, it actually wasn't illegal to cross-dress in New York. It was actually based on really old laws they misconfigured about, I think it was white people dressing up as natives to avoid taxes. From like 19th century.
Wait, that's a good law. That's the anti Elizabeth Warren law, I believe. Is what the name of that was called.
That's what I read was like the law they interpreted to fight this. So basically, you had to have 3 pieces of clothing that were suitable for your gender. Otherwise, you'd get checked by women cops or male cops to see if you're actually boy or girl based on like your biological genitals.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, but basically they would go for bars, and this Stonewall got raided, and they were doing this, and this group of extremely disenfranchised people who most of whom are like having to do sex work or like beg or do any like they're basically the lumpen proletariat. These weren't even like people able to get working jobs. They were like the
Right. This is
most
the
disenfranchised.
absolute margins. Yeah.
Yeah, but basically they were like fuck it, and they did not throw a brick right away. They threw like bottles and like coins and shit at the police, and then they barricaded the police in Stonewall. Um, and then there was a pile of bricks from construction, and that's when the brick flew.
I've seen the
But
videos. There was a pickup truck full of Houston Police Department officers just driving up a bunch of bricks there, right?
Yeah, but then it basically escalated, and more people from like neighboring bars. It's a very like liberal town area, so more people came to view. People came to like just literally just fuck shit up because that's what people do.
Sure, because there's always people who
Yeah,
are going to do that.
Turns out it's always going to happen.
Wow, is there some lesson in here, Sam, that you're trying to get at?
Yeah. And I think most people think Stonewall lasted only a night. It lasted 5 nights. Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, who are like the two most well known, they weren't like just like, oh, throwing bricks. They literally was like beating the shit out of like cars on the streets and burning fires in the trash cans.
Wow,
And like,
they're really undercutting their important cause by undertaking this this bad look, sweetie actions.
well, I mean, it was like not just them, but lots of people. But like, it shows like, turns out your queens who you're like, oh, it's only the white anarchists who are rioting. Like, turns out lots of people were rioting. It's people are fucking mad. People are mad and rioting to thing that anyone who's like pissed off enough does. That's not a bad word. I think people are like, oh, we shouldn't use rioting. It's like, that's not a bad word. It really just meant something.
It means
like
the rules don't apply anymore. It means the rules have no value anymore.
But also this idea of like, I think people tried to racialize it. The interesting thing about Stonewall, according to reports, was the demographics between like Latinos, white people, and like black people in Stonewall was actually pretty even. So all these people fighting together, and then I think there was like some musicians like who came and joined, like lots of people. Like it ended up being like thousands of people
over the 5 nights.
Over the 5 nights.
Yeah,
also, like Sylvia Rivera, there's no evidence she was there the first night.
No, she wasn't there. She was
there.
not there.
That's why I said there's no evidence.
Yeah.
And Marsha P. Johnson says she wasn't there until much later, but they were there the other nights.
Yeah.
But this is like the revisionism, like which is not necessary because they did do stuff. But the real important part of all of this is this got lots of attention from people all over the world. And then 6 months later, a bunch of the initial gay liberation orgs commenced, and then in 3 different cities, I think it was New York, LA, and SF, San Francisco, were the first prides. And this is basically how organized people emerge after a riot. Like the riot's not going to become an organized affair. It's going to later, hopefully, if it's done right, organize and then.
Right. I mean, yeah, I mean, sort of the gay freedom days, as I think it was. I mean, and you know, I think that's exactly the right take, is to say a riot is not inherently political.
Mm-hmm.
It actually is like, and you know, load riot with all the connotation you want, right? It doesn't really matter. It's just simply to say, like, shit has broken down so far and become so intolerable that the threat of violating norms has broken down for some people.
Like there's a lot of sports riots, and those don't ever become political. But
right,
which is like, but they
and
can
the Giants
be,
never win again. I'm sorry, I was trying to do a sports ball thing. I can't.
But they can come to fruition to an organized political base, and we don't know what's going to happen until. I mean, Black Lives Matter is an organized thing, but like we don't know what's going to emerge after this. We have no idea.
Well, and you know, not to pretend there's not also just like this incredibly long and storied history of particularly like Black civil rights organizing, right, which has taken so many different forms. And that's
totally
yet again to say, you know, to sort of try to judge essentially what is the like a symptom, like an explosion of violence and fires in almost every major city in the US is not a political act. It's not like you have like I can't get my head around the like the lib shit of like regarding anybody, right? I mean, as a sort of monolithic category, but
Yeah.
particularly say like, I don't know, black people in the United States, as though I don't know, like, are they're getting together, having a, getting to discuss the issues of the day and deciding on a course of action. They think it's like Robert's rules in action or
Well,
something
just
like.
the historical issue is so many of the variances in these movements were often just like not talked about in history because they were violent and broke shit and like quite like revolutionary in their tags. Like the civil rights movement's a very good example. Like MLK probably gets the most coverage because he is portrayed as like the peaceful like church man, which I mean there's issues of a lot of that narrative as well. Like the leaving out of the People's March, Orioles
Yeah.
March. But
Whoops.
there was like the Black Nationalists, like the Black Panthers. There was Malcolm X and the Islamic gay organizations.
Right.
There
And
was
and and
the
and the thing is, but even aside from all that, right, to yet again to like just recast history as sort of like this series of individuals
yeah,
and their like personal pursuits in coalition with others is to say that like for every one of those that you sort of learned briefly about in school, mostly inaccurately, and it ends when MLK started talking about like economics.
yeah,
But like there was also like the person who just stayed the fuck home, or the person who went and looted something, or the person who like called the cops on their neighbor, or so like. And the thing's like this doesn't have political content.
yeah.
These are like this is not how you understand history.
Mm-hmm.
You have to sort of understand history as a set of forces conflicting. So what you're seeing right now is not like, gee, this is the concerted effort that has been. It's no, you're seeing the conflict.
Well, it's
You're seeing the conflict between, say, classes, between these sort of racialized categories that have been hewn out
yeah.
very deliberately.
Well, it's like it's a very like black and white analysis. It's there's the good guys and the bad guys, and we're already seeing it now with the modern events of, oh, it's I think people be like, oh, it's the Republicans against like the Democrats, even though all the cities are owned by Democrats. Because that's not in term people like the libs analysis, like they can't fathom that
Well, you have to
both sides
essentialize
can be bad.
black people as a monolithic group that get to
Yeah,
deliberate as a whole and form opinions and then choose to act in these ways that just seem counterproductive. It's like
yeah,
no, it's just not like what like I the only analogy I can pick, right, is to say if you simply applied the same lens to like um how did white people feel about the election of Trump or whatever, like we can resort to sort of demographic polling or opinion polling, right? And
mm-hmm.
say, yeah, okay, there's some big split. And then like to then try and construct a political narrative around like the famous the blue haired shrieking woman who's screaming no at the inauguration, and like the MAGA chuds who are currently out in the streets carrying golf clubs and baseball bats around. Like what like how, like you can't draw any straight line through that. It turns out
Yeah,
because the category is just false. This is not a category that of people that get together and do concerted political action together. You're talking about a set of individuals upon whom social forces are acting and will therefore act in a bunch of different ways that won't actually make sense in some because you're doing the wrong analysis.
well, also the people trying to like this. The reason this is happening is because the PMCs and like the capitalists and the media are already trying to formulate a way to, and the corporations, a way to utilize like Black Lives Matter protests in a way that suits their interests. And tying it back to like the aftermath of Stonewall, this is what happened. People like Sylvia Rivera ended up being a homeless for a very long time and like treated extremely shitty by most people. Marsha P. Johnson, look up dead in a, or not look up. She was found dead in a river, and I mean, she may have murdered, may have not. We have no idea. We're not detectives, but like
The NYPD didn't really give a shit.
no, they didn't give a shit at all. So like the people that they champion were treated like crap. And and then you get people utilizing their image for profit. You get a lot of corporations or like PMC gay organizations shifting a cause that was out of like actual material frustrations, like
Right, actual safe, like physical safety often.
like a lot of people who did go on to organize after Stonewall, like from that community, were demanding like material economic rights, like, oh, we want anti-discrimination policies, we want housing, we want like access to healthcare and stuff. They didn't get that because they got their cause hijacked by a set of like people who don't care about that because it doesn't serve their material interest.
Right, I don't need it.
And we're already seeing it with Black Lives Matter, from like every single corporation sending a "We believe in Black Lives Matter." Like I literally looked up yesterday, like every single hookup app, Tinder, Grindr, Scruff, Jacked, and they all had posts about it. I'm like, y'all are like some of the most toxic environments. I was like, why are you posting this? Like, this doesn't make me want to buy your product. Like, if anything, it makes me hate your product more because I know you're just like grifting on a cause that's literally because police represent your economic class's interest.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
my email inbox was filled with, like companies I've bought shit from before in the past. At some point, like Etsy,
Yeah.
and the subject lines literally just are all stacked together. It just had a beautiful sort of poetic nature to it of like, message from our CEO, Black Lives Matter, from Etsy, and then the similar thing from fucking like I don't know who else, like every fucking stupid company. And the thing is, there's sort of no way to slice it once you get into the discursive slippery slope of being like, well, if they say nothing, are they tacitly approving of like,
Yeah.
are they saying Black lives don't matter? I don't know. But clearly there's a sort of a step of recuperation that occurs where a new some contradiction emerges, and then the entire sort of apparatus of capital, its
Yeah.
manifestations, kind of have to like figure out what to do about it. At the moment, they've sort of decided that the wind is blowing a certain way. I don't trust it for a second.
No, you shouldn't. This is what this class of people will always do, and they've always done it. They've done it for Pride and like the gay liberation struggle. We're to the point where like you have like $500 like rainbow Pride dresses and like everything from like Skittles to like I don't know Pop-Tarts have like rainbow
Doritos.
shit.
D-Ray selling
Doritos.
fucking rainbow Doritos or shit.
For like Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
And you saw it with like a much older.
Didn't Skittles do a like a
the no color thing.
the no color thing?
Yeah, the only time for rainbow is for Pride this month. That was their slogan.
Yeah, they released white like an image of white Skittles.
Yeah.
Which I think was like more than a week ago.
Yeah.
But holy shit, that's taken on a rather dark secondary meaning. Like,
yeah. Well,
fuck, I'm gonna go Photoshop like clan hoods onto the Skittles and then pretend that's what they did.
Yeah.
Because fuck you, Skittles.
Yeah, fuck you. Like even like old things like labor struggles, like the New Deal, like corporations actually watered down a lot of it and actually got a lot of like privileges in that matter as well, which we don't hear about because FDR was the greatest president ever. Like this is the whole thing. Like they're always gonna try and take it over, and I think it's up to people leading organizations and aftermath not to get sucked into it and not just buy this utter crap.
Which kind of goes back to the point about, we sort of started with after our grifting plug, about like why it makes sense to not choose to be cynical right now and avoid the edgelord tendency.
Yeah.
And the thing being, honestly, if you're the kind of person who listens to this podcast, so you're in your suburban mansion, your $600,000 a year job that your dad got you is still paying you to work from home, and you're a radical, right? So like that's our typical audience, right? Or do you check the viewer stats? I don't know. Anyway, so the point being, right, if you're the kind of person who actually like can stand to listen to us, then kind of maybe your voice is actually important in keeping the radicalism alive.
Yeah.
Like you're one of our listeners, so you're smart and beautiful, and you're too smart to be taken in by this shit. And we're just preaching to the choir here, but like I mean,
Yeah.
it actually matters, right? It matters who gets involved, and it matters who who pushes for what, right? If sort of everybody goes home as soon as Skittles removes the rainbow from their fucking packaging, and you said, cool, we've won this battle, then yeah, that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get fucking white Skittles out of your political struggle, and the people who are having their heads bashed in by cops this week, that's what all this will have meant.
Well, that's what happened when gay marriage passed. It was the final victory for this certain class. Remember when it happened? A lot of people, primarily in like the economic right, and like were like, oh, they're totally equal now. Like they have everything.
Yep.
But that's because they
Nothing more to complain
there was
about.
nothing about economics in there. And if you let them completely rid the economic realities of why police are killing people, why people are poor, why people have to resort to like things that are considered like petty survival like crimes. It's like
Right. What?
because they're all disenfranchised and they have no access to the economy or like any sense of material safety. And this is what these corporations are trying to do. If they're, can I call it blackwashing? Because we use like rainbow washing.
I
like
assume I
don't know. There's no term.
BLM washing. Certainly,
Yeah, BLM washing.
It's literally co-opting the branding of like Black Lives Matter as a movement to welcome a certain segment of the people who are supportive of something like Black Lives Matter into the fold.
Yeah.
In the same way that, and I like to pick on them because they're by and large the shittiest. Something like the Human Rights Campaign was, and it like very successful at welcoming the professional gays who just wanted their fucking sausage dog and their like kind of picket fence, right? Welcoming them into the fold.
Yeah.
And getting them access to a certain kind of power. And similarly, there is and will continue to be, and I'm sure an expansion of, there'll be an apparatus around, a legitimate sort of movement based on a well understood grievance, and there will be people waiting there to peel off and say, hey, like you're not really like the rest of those people.
Well, good example.
You're like come on into the fold.
A good example of this is Obama's recent speech on the protest, and it's like these protests happen under you, Black Lives Matter initially, like you treated them awful. Like I think they probably are far worse now because of like the crossover of like the global pandemic and like 40 million people being unemployed. I mean, I can't tell that because that's not how the world works. I can't pretend what I
can't interpret the what's in everyone's head. That's weird.
Yeah. But it's like, just because Obama's black and is like trying to sound like he's for the cause, like doesn't mean like he has the same end goal. Like he's on the same side that all the other like rich assholes are on. He's not on the people's side. He's being like murdered and like tear gassed and rubber bulleted.
Right. And think about like the level of bullshit race essentialism it takes to look at Obama, see nothing but say the color of his skin, and then sincerely interpret the words coming out of his mouth as speaking for all black people in America. Everyone thinks the same.
Yeah.
It is me, the best woke liberal who has just the best ideas. I'm anti-racist, and therefore I believe Obama when he tells me that buying, government procurement contracts from the Raytheon Corporation actually will end racism. Like, fuck off, right? It doesn't do enough, and it's not like it is not a sufficient way to understand the world to say if you're trying to square the circle on what Obama is saying and what some random person of any skin color who happens to be fucking looting something and setting some cars on fire for reasons that don't make sense to you, or the people who are out protesting with a very like coherent sharp political message, say,
Mm.
and if you're trying to like draw a line around them because your entire understanding of the world is predicated on skin color, then like you're not. I'm sorry, you're not really doing any anti-racism there. You're actually just doing some pretty vile race essentialism.
Yeah.
There's just a better way to understand the world, and I'm not trying to make a class reductionist argument. It was a dumb idea. It's simply just like this is complex, and people will do things for many different reasons, and the forces that act upon them are not primarily ones of race necessarily, as much as like, yeah, I don't know, like what has Barack Obama got to tell you, and if you just are willing to give him more time of day on what he has to say about protesters, then I know what to tell you. I don't think you're doing the work.
He literally chose a VP who just said, "Oh, just shoot the protesters in the legs. Don't shoot them in like, or don't kill them. Like, shoot them like."
That's woke.
You know,
that's good.
That's the nice like watered down version. Like,
yeah, we're going to retrain the police to shoot unarmed people in limbs.
Yeah, which never kills people.
No, it's fine. They can...
Also, massive amounts of police militarization accelerated under Obama.
Biden wrote the fucking crime bill.
Yes.
Like, this is the problem. Is like, well, I guess it leads us nicely into our next topic, which is we don't currently have a President Biden who will bravely lead us into a new era where we shoot unarmed black people in limbs instead of in the heart.
Yeah.
Instead, we have Trump, who has taken the bait, as it were, of the Antifa super soldiers.
Yeah. He's basically pushed off this like white anarchist Antifa narrative, which like when you have the police and the media who are all run by like corporations and stuff pushing this narrative, it's like maybe you should question it. Don't just completely buy all this shit. And we're not ones like ever critical of like the tactics of Antifa, which we have been, but like right now it's not really the time, I think. And also like
well, it's not a thing.
It's not a thing.
It's a meme. And like, so I mean, yeah, if you haven't been keeping up with the utterances of our dear leader, so he basically sort of tweeted, I guess,
he said they're going to be a terrorist group.
Yeah, he's going to label Antifa a terrorist group. Which, like, honestly, if you give a shit about like any of the implications of that, and like all the there are people who are busy like furiously replying to him with like, well, actually, article so and so says you can't. Like, I don't give a shit.
They don't care. Like,
certainly, I think there's something quite scary about the idea that the state sort of unilaterally wages war on something that is at best a political tendency.
Yes. That's what it probably is. It's not a political group.
It's not a political organization.
It's a political tendency, and in many ways, to many people, like an aesthetic.
Yes, right. So like to imagine it's an organized group outside of maybe like a few kind of coastal centers where yeah, maybe there is like a local Antifa knitting circle or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a, well, so the problem is, as I say this, I can't help but what's ringing in my ears is the in the time I have been speaking, there have been 3 trillion replies to tweets going, what do you call an anti-fascist again? I don't know. I think the Antifa thing, as it kind of in its development as a sort of European phenomenon primarily, and like being about a very specific response to a very specific and contingent threat, turned into a branding exercise, and people kind of mistake the genesis of this. Putting a black flag in your Twitter bio because you're sort of an anarchist, and then having a red flag in there because you're
kind of
you sort of think you might be a communist, and then putting always Antifa or whatever in there as well because you think that means you're like, who knows what the fuck that is. This is just a branding exercise. To the extent that like the people out right now getting their heads bashed in by riot police, if that's Antifa, then like, cool. They're like good on them. Like, I don't think there's a strong correspondence between the the people currently like getting their heads bashed in, those who have a lot of like Antifa bio signifiers. I don't know.
I just haven't seen any of that. I mean, it's people wearing black, but like almost everyone, it's a Black Lives Matter. Most people are wearing black, and everyone's wearing
Right,
face masks.
Wearing plain colors to protests, good idea. Be distinctive. Go,
But also just giving so much ground to, like the authorities and the power at B, to be like, just like, oh yes, you're right. These people are bad and these people are good, and we're gonna draw that line right now.
And this is the line about the sort of white anarchist provocateurs are the ones actually doing all the bad things in the protests. And this has been a meme essentially that has been shared.
Yeah,
and it's giving a lot of ground. And I simply refuse to countenance. I don't think you should. I think you should give that ground. I think you should just like, honestly, if you see a video of somebody smashing in a Target window, just shut the fuck up about it.
also,
Like just don't say nothing. And then if you see some people doing something you think is really cool or brave or courageous or meaningful, then cool, go talk about that. Like, just honestly, it's just easier to like just not like it's easier to say nothing instead of being all like, look, these are the white people who are trying to ruin this beautiful movement we really, because otherwise you're gonna build the human rights campaign of Black Lives Matter. That's work you're doing.
We'll talk about the real like people plotting things. Talk about the police truck bringing bricks to protest in the back of the truck.
Or smashing in windows.
Yeah, there was literally undercover cops like identified smashing windows or inciting violence, which should not be surprising if you know anything about like how this shit works. Or like you don't see the other halves. Like I think there was in Austin, a homeless man's possessions ended up getting burnt during one of the riots. But you didn't hear the after half where the whole community ended up buying him a brand new tent, buying him a new like everything, like new clothes, food, money. And he literally was like, oh, I don't have any beef with you guys actually. But you didn't hear that. You just heard, oh, these Antifa rioters burn this guy's down.
Right,
like,
and the people who are spreading exactly that fucking message was like, wasn't that like Andy fucking No or whatever?
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Right. It's like these are just like right wing shitheads. And like, I don't know, I feel like this is a kind of good moment in which to think a little bit about the fractures that develop inside the left are mostly fake shit.
Yeah, if you have issues, keep it to yourself. Like, choose your side. Like, you either side of like the working people, even if you may not agree with all the tactics, or you side of like the capitalist police bootlicker fucks. Like,
right, and to the extent that there are like, and this is maybe my beef with the people who spend a lot of their time online, hunting for impure thoughts within the left. And it's like, okay, whatever. Like that beef can just like chill for a bit, whatever's going on there, because there's actually something happening where the people who are prosecuting a very specific policy agenda is like people who are genuinely right wing and genuinely want like bad things to happen to black people in this country.
There's literally like armed, like apparently white male militias, like shooting bow and arrows at people and like bringing up their guns, and like I've seen numerous like people just drive their trucks and cars through crowds now, which actually became like legal during no DAPL protests, which happened under Obama.
There are actual enemies right now, and so this is where the cynicism, the sniping around simply like are other people going about it the right way is to pretend there's no threat. And what it might be telling you, if that is your first impulse, and nobody who ever listened to this podcast would ever think this, but if you have friends who are spending a lot of time adjudicating this, what they're kind of telling you is that there's just no dog in the fight for them.
Yeah.
And so like
they have a line where they're like, oh, this cause is no longer important to me because it's too crazy or too wild.
Yeah, because it actually might start to threaten. Yeah, it might actually start to threaten my sort of material interests. Like, and as I say, there's like, there's plenty of people with whom I feel like I have a big disconnect, who are sort of leftists, right? And I regard a lot of them as fucking libs or whatever. But the thing is, right this second, doesn't fucking matter. I will, I will stand proudly next to them, and that's fine. Right?
Nothing's been done by everyone of a single cause having all the same views. Like, if any group actually did that, they would just literally never win. Like,
right. You just have to pull together for the fucking win. Or when it's literally like, I mean, the state trying to essentially in on many different facets and in many different ways, trying to open up a conflict, whether it's police bashing in the heads of people who are, let's say their fundamental political convictions are just like lib all the way down, or whether it's Trump calling Antifa a terrorist group and like all the kinds of like legal and state oppression apparatus that will get wheeled out in service of that, or whether it's like, I don't know, fucking DSA caucuses fighting with each other or whatever. Like, it just doesn't matter right this second. You kind of just have to like let that sit for a minute and instead be like, wait, there are actual enemies right now.
Something's going on. Like, this isn't the
There's
time
a thing
to
happening.
Like your nippy, like stupid differences, like destroy what's actually important to a lot of people right now. Like,
that's what solidarity means. It means you have to be like, look, this isn't quite my cause. You're not really going about the right way, but I understand your fundamental, the fundamental commonality that we share. That's what we just have to kind of hang on to through all of this, is just that.
Yeah. Like,
I think Antifa is stupid. But if state oppression starts coming down on them, I don't want that to happen.
Well, here's the thing. These people who for one, a lot of people who have been like, the Stonewall's a riot, so don't critique rioters, are the ones spreading a lot of this propaganda of like this white Antifa, whatever, which I find ridiculous and hypocritical. But also, to make that separation is no different than like what I think Trump said both sides after the Charlottesville.
What about the old left?
Where like the girl got like killed by the car.
Yeah, Heather
like
that's hair getting.
Like, that's saying like, oh,
fucked.
both sides are doing bad. And once you say, oh, there is bad on both sides, you're legitimizing like actual violence. The cops aren't being like killed by people. Lots of people have actually died in these protests these past few days from like, or like lost their eyes or like severely.
Well, people understand like put it this way, there is an actual conflict going on.
Yeah.
And it is easy to like, well, I mean, you at some point kind of have to just pick sides.
Totally.
And live with the fact that, you're just not going to like a lot of the stuff that the people you sort of end up then loosely affiliated with. But put it this way, the people who are currently beating in the heads of the people out in the streets right this second while we're busy podcasting, are under no illusions about whether there's an actual conflict and whether there are sides in it.
Yeah.
So if you're spending a lot of time on the question of like, oh, well, actually, I think we can carve out these people and we can carve these people out from it. It's like, no, don't do that. You're doing the work of somebody else.
It's just also, it's not about you as an individual. Like, no social movements should ever be viewed as like a individualist framework. Like, oh, you're uncomfortable a little bit because you have to use people you slightly disagree with. Like, that's too bad. Like, it's not. It should. People are trying to make things about themselves because we live in an era where like everything's super individualized and like it's a brand, and people are literally posting like half naked pictures and saying Black Lives Matter, like OnlyFans accounts doing this shit. It's like, this isn't about you. Like, get over yourselves and pick a side.
But to be clear, they picked a side. They picked it in a really weird and awkward way, and I think that shit's cringe, but. Still better than Andy fucking or whatever, who's like busy tweeting propaganda for
no, it's fine.
Right wing.
It's fine that they picked a side, but don't make it about yourself.
Maybe don't put it this way. Make yourself easy to like this week of all weeks.
Yeah.
Just just try and chill the fuck out. You don't have to tweet every thought that comes into your head. You don't have to podcast every idea you have. Hey, we only did one episode this week.
Yeah,
it was a deliberate thing. We're like,
Jan, it's Tuesday. This is when our first.
No, we didn't do one last week though. I mean, sorry, we only did one last week. We've been doing 2 a week, and we I don't know. It's just like it just doesn't feel like the time. Anyway, should we wrap it up?
We should wrap it up.
Cool. So remember, I don't know, get involved in the way that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
And remember to buy our Twink Revolution Black Lives Matter themed anal bleaching kit.
That's not a thing, guys, just so you're clear.
Wait, are we not? Sorry, fuck.
We're gonna get like a tweet where like they're launching a bleaching kit with Black Lives Matter, and we're like, no, we're not actually.
Okay, good.
We don't sell anything at the moment.
Come
so.
on, if people cannot read my deadpan by now, then they've been really struggling through this podcast.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, stay safe, everyone. We love you all.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.